I'm going to tell you about a success story that's gone wrong and why I'm asking for your help. This story takes place in the Philippines. The first time I visited the Philippines, I had to cry myself to sleep. I've never seen so much poverty and desperation. I grew up poor, but not third world poor. I was born and raised in Hawaii, and my host to the Philippines was a friend from work, and this is her relative's compound on the village over. I was actually relieved meeting these people on this compound because I like solving problems. I like having something to do. I like being productive. I would never go on vacations because I don't like the work that hard to go and see something I could see in a book or on TV. I don't need to go on a tropical vacation on a tropical beach because I grew up in Hawaii. We're literally surrounded by tropical beaches. One of my good friends dragged me to San Francisco, and I try to stay interested, but how many times and how many different positions can you look at the same bridge? One of the biggest vacation destinations for Hawaiians is Las Vegas, but I was raised that it was wrong to gamble, and Las Vegas wasn't built on casinos losing money. So as my host and the families of the compound visited and caught up, I sat there quietly and looked around the compound and saw quite a few problems. And when the host and the host family asked me what I was thinking, I respectfully and tactfully brought up a few problems that I saw on the compound. Of course, I didn't call them problems. And they said that they would fix it if they had the resources to do so. And I was happy because I had a lot of resources that I brought with me on this first international vacation. So I wanted to spend it on something that would be productive. I didn't want to be traveling all over the Philippines and being a tourist. That's things I could see in the National Geographic magazine. Now, the child in me wanted to fix everything, but the adult in me knows that I cannot fix everything. So I picked a few of the most important problems that I thought I could fix. Now, this is their bathroom. It's a outhouse without any walls and without any door or roof. And rain or shine, this is the outhouse for the family compound, which had about 5 or 6 families on it. This was an easy fix. 2 outhouses built on opposite ends of the compound with roofs and a door for privacy. Another problem I saw immediately was at the water pump. The water drained into this, I don't know what you call it, this huge hole or this huge puddle that just sat there. And usually it's not very good to have water sit there because then, like in the tropics in Hawaii, and the Philippines is the tropics also, there's a problem with mosquitoes, and mosquitoes can carry diseases that can harm, if not kill people. So mosquitoes aren't our friends, and we don't want mosquitoes around our house. So I figured we could tackle the problem in multiple ways. One of the ways was to dig the hole deeper so the water wouldn't spill out and just sit on the land. The second way is to make the surrounding soil, which is like clay, more porous so it could absorb more of the water and help it evaporate. And the final way, which is the very efficient way, is to plant trees. And the trees will absorb the moisture in the soil, which will absorb the moisture from the drainage. I'm not sure what you would call that hole or that puddle, but it will absorb the moisture there and also provide fruits for the family. So I bought calamansi trees, which is a Filipino lime. It's really tasty. And orange trees, grapefruit trees, banana trees, guava trees, and a bunch of other trees that could not only provide a source to take care of the moisture in the ground, but to also provide food for the families on the compound. This is a huge success because months later, the families planted a garden with chilies, tomatoes, sweet potatoes, and other vegetables. On the other side of the compound was vacant, and I figured we could probably use the land for something else. The problem was that there was this huge bamboo stump that was there, and because of the success of the other side of the compound, the men of the compound stayed home from working the rice fields to help clear out this huge stump. After the giant stump was removed, the land was prepared to raise chickens, geese, and goats. The chickens were easy to feed because the feed wasn't too expensive and the chickens could scavenge around for bugs and things to eat around the compound. The goats was actually a good investment because they would breed fast and they would eat vegetation in the vacant lot across the street from the compound. So the overhead for these 2 animals was pretty good. I would like to say that this was a huge success story and they lived happily ever after, but the success ended a few years ago. The family compound slopes down from the road, so the water and rain will drain downwards and out through a few holes in the wall down the slope. The neighbors next door built this huge house, but they had the gutter system from their entire roof drain onto the family compound, which worsened the flooding. The family took the matter to the barangay kapitan. The barangay is the Filipino word for village, and the kapitan is like a mayor of the village. The barangay kapitan took the side of the wealthy neighbors because they built the wall. If the family wants the water to drain someplace else, they're supposed to build a bigger wall. The families on this family compound was living hand to mouth. Anything else was a luxury. What made things worse is that the neighbor then sealed up the holes to the bottom of the compound, which caused the flooding to get even worse. Now remember the goats and the chickens and the outhouse? Well, the Philippines don't have a sewage system going through the villages, so everything goes into cesspools. So when the water overflows, the cesspool overflows, and even though there's nothing definite that you can see in the water, you should already know that there's stuff in the waters that's not healthy for you. So a lot of waterborne diseases can come from that sewage water. The water will flood 1 to 1.5 feet into the grandmother's house, so we try to fix it by sealing off the water that entered the house. This worked, but remember, the houses are very basic. The grandmother still had to wade through that dirty water to the outhouses if she had to go to the bathroom. A few of the kids got sick, and even one of the kids died from a waterborne illness. It was best that the grandmother lived with her cousins in another village to be safe from the flooding. Because of the frequent floodings and the extended time it took the water to drain and evaporate, all the plants in the garden died. All the trees died except for a few banana trees and one coconut tree. The goats began to get sick because they're not the type of animal that can wait in water for long periods of time. So after a bunch of them started to die, I told them they might as well just sell them all because there's nothing we can do about the situation. Same things happened with the chickens. So now the compound looks like this. The families of this compound are too afraid to confront the neighbor or to take the situation to the barangay captain again. They are worried that things could get worse. This is a video of what one of the boys sent me, so you can see firsthand of what they have to live through.
Ito, nabubuking. And come again, the rain, and comes the water inside my house. Yeah, it's already so hard. Yeah. And I cook it this evening. Yes. Water is coming inside my house. Yeah. It's very strong rain. Oi. Blackout.
Okay, for the last few years, I didn't know what to do with the situation, so basically I just let it play out. I mean, my options were very limited. Their options were very limited. And then earlier this year, one of the boys sent me that video, and then there are more than just concerns about waterborne illnesses. He has electricity in there, the floor is wet, and there's children there. It's just like a horrible situation that could lead to another horrible situation. I couldn't ignore it for any longer, so I asked them to take pictures or to make a video to show me the situation so I can figure out what to do. Because the neighbors sealed off the drainage from the property, the only other option I would see was to re-slope the land so the drainage will flow towards the street. But after looking into it, even after the US peso exchange rate, that will still cost tens of thousands of dollars, because that would involve heavy machinery, a retaining wall, an engineer, demolition of both houses down the slope, and then probably have to rebuild them, which would be another huge cost. The two houses at the bottom end of the slope are basically unusable. The grandmother moved out to another village to live with other relatives. The family on the other house had to just move someplace else. The boy who sent me the video, his house is located about midway down the slope. So his house, I believe, is salvageable. And this is my plan. Has to build up the foundation of his house. The whole thing doesn't have to be sitting on solid concrete. They can put fillers in there to keep the costs down, but they have to raise the level of that house. And the most cost-effective way to rebuild that house is to use concrete. All of the men on the compound has to look for any job that they can find. So they are experienced in working in the rice field, doing general maintenance, and even carpentry. The boy told me that if I could just provide the capital for the materials, that he and his uncles can build the house without having to hire anyone. So I called all my contacts in the Philippines so I can get an honest estimate on how much the materials will cost. The range I was told was $10,000 to $15,000 to build up the foundation and build a house and secure a tin roof to it. And this is just a basic house with no bathroom, just a shelter where they can safely weather out tropical storms or typhoons and stay out of the dirty water that overflows due to no drainage allowed to that compound. I am asking for your help. Any amount will be helpful. This is my first GoFundMe account. I worked really hard on this presentation to show you how hard these people are struggling. Again, I'm asking for your help. I will record its progress and post the videos on YouTube. I appreciate your consideration.